have been having a good evening for a happy St. Patrick's Day. This time, I'd like to introduce the board to you. To my extreme left, newest member, Hillary Seeger.
Good afternoon.
Lucan.
Good afternoon.
Peter Brothers.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Present co-chair, Carl Horn.
Good afternoon.
Myself, I'm Nathan Torr, chair presently. To my right, town manager, Phil Warren.
Good afternoon.
And Karen Landry, our recording clerk. Just a quick reminder, if there's an emergency, we have to leave this room as exit on either end. Hearing devices are in the back. Also, if you have any electronics, please turn them off. And if you need to use those restrooms, they're just to the right as you came into this building. We have three things on the Select Board's workshop today. The first one is W14-5, and that's the reorganization of the Select Board. And so with that, I will adjourn myself from that and turn it over to our town manager. If you want to know the correct procedure, the town manager takes over the voting until it's all done, and then once the new chair is established, the chair takes over the meeting from there. So Phil?
Mr. Chairman, one item, we're waiting for the town clerk so Hillary can get sworn in. I know that Kerry was on her way over, so do you want to belay that?
Can a justice of the peace do it?
Yeah,
Give me the oath.
either you or me, either one of us. So,
That's good going.
I think we better,
Yeah.
we either did or filled it.
All right, let Phil do it.
No, I just
Yeah, and it doesn't matter to me, I mean, I'm just gonna check quick to see if Carrie, because I know she was coming over for that purpose.
Okay, we'll be on hold.
And I know that we're short-staffed in the town hall, so if she's got something, she's not gonna be able to leave. So give me 1 second. I can check on this.
She's here, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, we
Yeah,
go.
she's here.
She saved me from finding where that oath of office is. Thanks for getting me off the hook.
Yes.
They would take my parking spot.
That's special.
And,
Is that the one that said town clerk parking lot?
yeah,
And that's part of what happens. You get a close shave like that and
Oh.
all sorts of things happen. I won't. So, Carrie, go ahead.
ready. Stand up. Raise your right hand.
Let me get this close up.
Do you, Hillary Seeger, solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially
Out
discharge
of my
and
way.
perform all the duties incumbent to you as a town of Meredith Selectmen, according to the best of your abilities, agreeable to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much. Now, Phil.
Thank you. Okay, I will take nominations for chairman from the floor.
Phil,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Carl Horn for chairman.
Have a second to that nomination? Lou seconds that. Do we have any other nominations from the board for chair? We do not. Or do we?
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we're electing Carla by acclamation.
We have no votes, we have no more from the floor, then
If there's nobody else.
nobody else, then I would entertain that motion, and all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's 5-0. Thank you very much. And Carla, you are now the chair. You now can take nominations for vice chair.
So he's,
You want me to? I can do it. I can do it while I'm here. Okay, I will continue on. We have a nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Peter Brothers for vice chair.
Carl nominates Peter. Do we have a second for that nomination?
I second it.
Hillary seconds it. And I should have asked before, Peter, will you accept that nomination?
Yes.
And are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you.
I just got set up here at 8.
So everybody can roll.
Well, I've got a chair that I like, I don't want to be. But if next time around you want to do it that way,
Aye.
Okay, are we ready to begin the workshop? Continue it, I should say. First, I'd like to thank Nate for doing a fantastic job this year as the chairman this past year.
Welcome. Thank you.
And after reorganization, the next item is W14-6, Library Memo of Understanding Proposal. Phil?
Thank you. You have in your packet a copy of a draft of a memorandum of understanding between the town and the library. If you remember back when we started this process, Nate, you were involved in this with Miller Levitt, back when we started discussing town and library issues and how they interact. Excuse me, I don't remember specifically, but it was either Retta or Miller that suggested that we assemble such a document between the town and the library. And what this is this is actually a draft of it. As you can see, this came in last year, and I had stated that we would take this up with the goals after town meeting, and here we are. And the document that you have in your packet actually has a historical review of what has gone on between the town and the library, stating that in 1993, the town manager and the financial officer for the town attended the library board meeting and proposed it would be more efficient for the library to transfer their bookkeeping to the town. That's how we operate today, but at no time were these, to my understanding, ever spelled out to specifically state who does what, for a better way of explaining it. And one of the conflicts that may occur is that the library is governed under RSA 202A, which allows them to operate as an autonomous body, and then the town has its own set of rules, ordinances, and administrative regulations that we operate under, and at times they may conflict. So, as a first pass at this, the library had presented, the Library Board of Trustees had presented to me this draft of the Memorandum of Understanding, and in it, it states, and I will be happy to run through it, it states that the library to the town responsibilities pursuant to RSA 202A:11, that the library trustees would adopt bylaws, rules, and regulations for the library's own transactions and business. They would submit a budget to the select board for inclusion in the town budget, which will cover salaries, benefits, etc. Expend all monies raised and appropriated by the town for library purposes. Expend income from trust funds. Appoint a library director. Retain money received from the library's income-generating equipment. You remember we had a article at town meeting in 2011 that allowed them to do that. And then it further goes on to say that the library would make a written report to the town based on, there are many items in here, receipts, expenditures, property in their care, requests for donations, total number of books, number of borrowers, and a statement of the use of the property in the library. And they would report information to the Office of Attorney General regarding said above. The library trustees would agree to sending the library director to town manager staff meeting as time allows, to meet with the select board, to work with the select board to develop a library budget to support the library's needs, work with the CIP committee, invite a select board member to sit on the library's master plan committee, utilize town services and pay a reasonable fee for the town to maintain the library's bookkeeping, including personnel-related expenses, accounting for all monies expended through town of Meredith tax revenue, and human resources issued for the staff required by New Hampshire Department of Labor, and the Meredith Public Library would be guided by the town's personnel policy. And then they state that they requested the town to the library responsibilities would include some items that were spelled out in the letter that was written from Paul Restaino to Buildings and Grounds, from Buildings and Grounds to the library. The Public Works would perform snow removal, lawn mowing, weed whacking, irrigation, bush and bed maintenance, and other small incidental items. Another piece of correspondence went between Buildings and Grounds and the library stating that they would shovel snow, trash pickup, fire extinguisher inspections, parking lot repainting, moving books for the book sales as time allows, hanging a quilt display, and installing the maypole as time allows. That we provide insurance, the town, for building and contents, support funding for major building maintenance through recommendations of the CIP and an expendable trust fund, bonding for all library trustees and staff, which we do today, supporting expendable trust for library maintenance, including in the library and grants and surveys for buildings owned by the town, and then in exchange for an annual fee from the library, the town would continue to provide these services. Payroll services, including necessary deductions. Town will maintain an accounting of all monies approved at town meeting for the library. That is currently provided. The town will prepare a budget spreadsheet for the library. We do that. Currently include the library in the annual audit, which we do, and then the following human resources matters for the library, which are currently provided as stated by the library. Background checks, compliance with federal, state, and local laws, obtaining and processing documentation for new hires, and making sure library employees receive insurance and benefits provided by the town. My first pass through this document, I noticed there were a few items that, as I did say earlier, these items that we already performed, but there are a few that I am concerned with, and that is just because, again, because of that conflict between the town and the library. The library under RSA 202A has the ability to hire, set wages, and take care of their personnel. If you notice in here, there's a service currently provided that I stated, making compliance with federal, state, and local laws, rules, and regulations. That may be problematic if the library, as they stated, uses the personnel policy as a guide and doesn't follow it to the letter. I'm not saying that they do or they don't, but because that personnel section is not directly overseen by my office, it's overseen by the library director, it can become problematic at some point. The potential exists for it to become problematic. Right now, we have a set of rules and administrative regulations for town employees that we ensure through our office is followed 100%. I don't have the ability to do that if I don't directly oversee it, and nor am I suggesting that I want to. I'm just throwing it out there that it is an area for conflict and or concern. Some of the other items that I feel should be included in here at some point, as I think that with discussion with the Library Board of Trustees, I think both the library and the selectmen need to come to a clear definition as to what exact responsibilities as they relate to the building are. And I hate to say it this way, who does what to whom is what we need to spell out at that level. So, and these are including minor maintenance, major maintenance, plans for the future, items such as that, so that we know we have a clear roadmap, because as this board has seen, those have been some of the discussion items as of late.
Comments from the board?
Madam Chairman, I have a lot of comments on this memorandum of understanding. I don't know how you want to deal with them. I could go through them one by one.
Well, why don't we each, all of you spend maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes and spill it out, whatever you have to say.
Do you want me to go?
Sure, go right ahead.
Could I, just before Lou goes, I have one other piece I should have thrown in there. My intent tonight was to bring this before the board because it's a policy matter and it's not something that I could, let's say, hammer out between the library, because the board sets policy. So if you're prepared to comment on it tonight, so be it, but I was envisioning that we would go through, establish a schedule and see if the board wants to do this with or without the library, or how they'd like me to respond. I have no problem if that's the way you want to go, but I just,
Well, just maybe to get some ideas,
Yeah.
and then
okay.
maybe we can sit down and
And then bring it back to the library after we have this
Yeah.
discussion.
have the
Okay.
library trustees come in and discuss it.
Okay.
Any concerns or ideas for changing, or? Go ahead, Lou.
Okay, we asked for it.
I can always cut you off.
And I'll storm out of here angry. All right, on the first page, there's a sentence: trust funds and investments would remain separate and still be managed by the library trustees. Library trustees can manage trust funds only under certain conditions, and I think they need to confirm that they are observing those conditions, because unless the donor of a trust fund specifically says it's to be done by the library trustees, the funds are supposed to be with the trustees of trust funds. So that's, they should confirm that they're in compliance with 202A, 22, and 23. Going on. There's a sentence at the top of the second page that the boards expect the town to continue funding the operating expenses of the library at a level consistent with the type and size of a public library appropriate to Meredith. I'm not sure what that means. It is really vague. And I don't know if anybody else is troubled by it, but, I think, I don't know that the boards really have an understanding on this as to sort of what the level of expenditure should be. Going down into the next paragraph, the long-term needs of the library should be considered, particularly any undertakings by the library trustees toward further expansion or renovation of the building. There's a little gun jumping going on here. Thought should be given to setting aside reserves for future projects. I don't know that we agreed to set aside reserves. I don't know that we are now considering undertakings toward future expansion or renovation. I know that there's a lot of smoke around toward that, in that direction, but I don't know that this board is committed to any of that, or should be. So, going on page 3, I think that 1C, expend monies raised and appropriated by the town for library purposes in the manner, and for the purposes appropriated. Going down at in 2D, and bequests or donations they may receive and are holding on behalf of the town, make a written report to the town of all receipts, etc., and bequests and donations they have received and are holding on behalf of the town. It's the same issue as to whether or not they should be holding them. I have a feeling they're not aware of this statute. All right, going over to page 4, 3G, the public library will be guided by the town's personnel policy. I've got the same problem Phil has. Where does that get us? On page 5, they've got us committed to supporting funding for major, see this in the middle of the page, major building maintenance through recommendations of the CIP committee and/or an expendable trust fund. And then in E, supporting an expendable trust fund. For one thing, I think they've got to understand that the board is not bound by the CIP. The CIP is advisory to the select board, but does not bind the select board. Secondly, I don't know that we are binding ourselves to setting up an expendable trust fund. I don't know that we do support that. We might at some point, but I'm not going to say that I'm in support of it right now. We've got a lot of other things in terms of capital expenditures that we need, and maybe an expendable trust fund for the library is kind of a lower priority, although I know that they've got all kinds of expenditures that they want us to make. And then the statement on the town's personnel policy on 7, they reserve the right to adopt different policies from those contained in our personnel policy. I don't know where that gets us, but that's Phil's concern.
Next.
Okay. I just have a couple questions. You took care of about 3 of mine, so. Under 3, Roman number 3F, utilize town services, pay a reasonable fee to the town to maintain libraries, book cleaning, including personnel-related expenses, accounting for all monies expended through the merit tax revenue and human resources issues for the staff required by the state. What do we do now? I know we do not collect a fee.
Yeah, we do. There's an amount in the library budget. Give me like 2 seconds, I'll pop it up. It's not.
Well, no.
But I can comment on what we do.
Yes.
Actually, at this point, any training, reporting, documentation, et cetera, that we do for a town employee gets done for a library employee. They're treated, you know, whether it involved their benefits, whether it involved compliance with Department of Labor audits, that it's done seamlessly. The reason it's done that way is the paycheck says the town of Meredith on it. So if there's an issue, they're gonna come back to the town of Meredith. They're not gonna come back to the library, police, fire, et cetera. We're the employer of record. So we do what we can with the information that's presented. And as I said, to date, it isn't an issue, but the potential does exist. We put a lot of time into the old personnel policy and the new one that you've seen in draft form. And the reason we did that is to ensure that we are in compliance with all these laws, rules, regulations, ordinances, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Second one, under responsibilities of town to library, it's Roman numeral 1, and it comes out to be D, bonding of all library trustees, yes, and staff.
When it's necessary, if the position requires it to be bonded, we do that. But most of the time we have, and I hate to say it this way, but it's what it's called, is like an employee dishonesty policy. So if an employee does do something, and we also have public liability that's covered by the library, our umbrella policy, that the library's covered by, excuse me. But if the position requires bonding, we take care of it. And we do that today.
Yes, okay. Just when it said staff, I was like, okay, how far are we going here?
Well, there's specific bonding requirements for offices. Off the top of my head, I don't know if the library director is required to be bonded, but they are required, employees are required to be insured, and that insurance is covered for all town employees while performing their official duties.
Okay,
Do we in fact bond the library trustees?
I don't know, that's what I have to check and see. I would assume, I know that they're covered by our public officials insurance.
okay, also under that is F, including library and grants and surveys of buildings owned by the town of Meredith.
We did an energy audit recently, the library was included in the energy audit. If we do anything similar to that, or we receive any grants, you know, for technical assistance, et cetera, we include the library in any of those.
Okay, now, because I didn't understand when it said surveys of buildings, okay.
The energy audit
Extended.
is a good example of one.
Okay, and thanks, Lou, you took care of 3 others, so, fine.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to try to take a look at this maybe a little differently and start out by saying I think this is drafting this and getting an understanding of the specific responsibilities of each is certainly something that's long overdue. And my feeling is that if we hash some of these things out and we all have specific understanding, both the present boards, present trustees, that we have a blueprint going forward, recognizing that roles and people change. So I think that's incredibly important. This reminds me of when we had the ball field and the athletic field situation with the school and the town. And for years there was acrimony and some general understanding and things that developed that, shall we say, festered. So once that effort was made at getting an understanding whose responsibilities were for facilities and/or operational aspects and planning pieces, there's been a great deal of harmony, and I think there's been more of a uniform response to issues as they come up. So bearing that in mind, I think this is an important step going forward. I do like the concept of developing the history of the why and wherefore we're doing this. I think that helps us spell out where some of the issues have been. Also recites the different laws and some of the what I call governing or regulation matters that both sides are going to have to consider. Beyond that, I think that this is a first draft, and I think Phil in the introduction covered it. This was a draft that was presented to the board, and this is the first real reveal of that because of budget and other matters that we've had. So I think what I'd like to do is read through it a little more carefully after some of our discussion here, and then have the board, shall we say, draft the document from our perspective, or at least adding input from our perspective. They had the unique and difficult position, shall we say, of starting the document, and I think you'll find, as I have, much is written, from their perspective, and I think we need to, shall we say, enter all the values into the equation. I think it's going to be most delicate, but I do believe the best way to shall we say, work on this would be to have the board inject some of its comments into a similar draft, and then procedurally have some workshops and/or meetings with the full board of the trustees and the selectmen, so that we can, shall we say, see each other eyeball to eyeball, and perhaps get a better understanding of either some of the undertones or some of the direct statements that we're all making, so that hopefully we can do so, shall we say, honestly, and when the document is completed, we can be more comfortable with it. So I think the major piece that I am having, pieces that I'm having a little bit of difficulty with is recognizing that the statutes governing the library are pretty specific in terms of their overall responsibility, and yet recognizing that the town also has certain regulations and/or policies in place, and the meshing of those two is not going to be easy. A good example of this is if you have the library more or less using as a guideline the town personnel policy, the problems that can arise with that is when the situation works well, they'll employ them. When they want to use their own RSAs or their own jurisdiction to control the situation, that could be in conflict. And so my concern is more from a compliance standpoint. How do we treat all the employees of both the library and the town, shall we say, fairly, within the constraints of the laws and regulations, and some reasonable agreement, so that we can ensure that there's adequate compliance. I have some issues with shall we say, doing one thing for library employees and another for town, and then having the town responsible for that. And I would say to some degree they're going to, from a court standpoint, I think they're going to come back to the town as the governing body and say you're responsible. So I think we've got to work out and discuss openly those potential conflicts and find a better way to, shall we say, align both the powers that are granted under the RSAs to the library trustees and some of the requirements of us as a municipal government. So those are the areas that I see that will primarily need focus. I think that operational and specific responsibilities can be worked out pretty easily with the two sides meeting. Where I also have some concerns, though, is the planning and the direction of the library. I view the responsibility for future planning to some degree as a library trustee function. And part of that would be, I would think they would probably have a better pulse on the direction of the community in regards to that particular entity. But I do also recognize that from a standpoint of financially planning, looking down the road, and having it fit within the overall town budget, that it's very critical that the planning on the library's part be, shall we say, in coexistence, or at least in tandem to some degree with the direction of the other departments within the town of Meredith. So there are some challenges here, but I really want to try to get off on a more positive foot and be as constructive, because the differences and the acrimony that's been over the years between the library and the town is really not in any of our best interest. And I know there's some different players that are being added to the equation, so history becomes a little less important, but yet it does guide us. So I'm looking forward to it. It's not going to be an easy road, I don't think at all. There's going to be some areas that are going to be very sticky, but I think we have to encourage them and ourselves to try to see our ways through that, because I think the end result is going to put us in really good stead.
I agree, Peter. Hillary, you want to add anything?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My biggest concern reading through this echoes Phil's and Lou's with the personnel guidelines, or with the personnel policies being used as a guideline when the town of Meredith is ultimately the employer. I think that could have some legal ramifications, and and then beyond that, I need some more time to actually go through this and read it, but that jumped right out at me.
Would you like to speak?
Yes, I would.
You may speak.
Thank you. Jim Hughes, Meredith.
Can you turn that on, Jim? Just the red button.
No red button.
Just a little silver button, you push the red light comes on.
Okay, now the red light's on.
Awesome.
I'm in the red light district.
Bring the mic right down to you and away you go.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Well, this problem that you have in understanding the documents is nothing new. The boards of selectmen over the years have had more problems understanding the administration, use, and ownership of the library than any other building or department in town. It's a unique situation, and if this can bring about a greater harmony budget-wise and in actual use, it's a good step in the right direction. And I think that it's something you're not going to be able to do in 1 or 2 meetings. It's going to have to take some diplomacy and give and take on both sides. Because over the years, of course, I was a selectman once, and I dealt with the library a few times, and especially when Peter Russell was town manager, and there were some improvements being made to the buildings. And they were always supreme. We were the providers of the capital and so forth. But it was their building, their property. And I think this has got to be spelled out. If you're going to take over and begin to do all of the budgeting and nitpicking except to who buys the books and who's employed, there's an awful lot to it. And I don't think it's something that you can solve with 30 minutes of discussion of an evening. I think have had some good questions, and I think you're going to have more negotiations and so forth, and hopefully you'll have it passed before the 4th of July.
Thank you, Jim. So would the board like to come to another, maybe our next workshop with some written suggestions, and maybe we can have Phil draft a response, if you will, a response letter of understanding, and have the library trustees come in and have a good, productive discussion?
Carl, if I could, would the board have a problem with me communicating some of these initial concern items to the library trustees so that we might be able to, let's say, address a few of them, or at least get them thinking as to where the board is going?
I think that would be an ideal situation. That's
Sure.
right.
The
Thanks, Board.
suggestions, we've had quite a bit of suggestions.
Yeah, I've kept a list, I've got like a punch list of them.
Redrafted, yeah, it sounds,
Madam Chair, also, Phil, if we could have a little update, because they have a library master plan committee. I'd like to have an update of where they're going on that and what their thinking is. And if it comes down, because they've invited a select board member to be on that committee, then at least we hit the ground running. I hope somebody will, so we're not just starting out from scratch. We have a better idea of who, what, when, where, and how.
thanks, Nick.
No. I indicated that I will not be there.
I can do that, Nate, that's not a problem, but the library director's report, I'm just taking a quick look at it, the one we got in February. I did not see anything. Yeah, there was a small one. The full committee met on January 15th, the outreach committee met on January 16th, 17th. Wow, I can't speak today. Surveys have been placed throughout the community with the drop boxes, the online survey. Has been linked to the library's website and Facebook. Information about the master plan and the survey are in the January newsletter. Press release went out and ran in the local papers, and the next meeting was February 12th. And I have not received the March library director's report, but I anticipate it'll come in shortly if it follows the progression that we've seen in the past 2 months.
Go ahead.
I think your suggestion, Phil, is a good one, because what we've got here is a little bit of a contract between the library and the board. And I think if we just go back and start, rewriting the contract, I think, it doesn't get us very far. But I think it would be helpful for them to understand that they have certain responsibilities, we have certain responsibilities, and our responsibilities are to the entire town. And so we can't contractually give away our discretion on much of anything.
Shall we wait until the April 7th meeting or the April 21st meeting?
I'm just pulling the schedule back up. You have a lot merger request that's probably going to garner a lot of discussion on April 7th, so I would recommend that we bring this back up on the 21st, the workshop.
And then Phil, you can contact the library?
Yeah, yes.
On to the next item.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
just
Peter?
a couple of things in terms of working through. I was looking at here, Phil, at some of the items, as far as the personnel policy is concerned. I think we should all probably try to dig that out and see where there might be some potential conflicts. Because just referring to it, as you recall, that was a pretty good rewrite that was done within the last, year? And where there might be some potential conflicts with what is suggested in their draft, it would be probably beneficial if we at least keyed in a couple of those areas, and then we're able to, provide information back to them as well, so they could see the point that may be trying to be made.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say that rewrite draft, we haven't approved yet, but absolutely, yeah, we can bring that back. Let's say, let me say in a simplified version, because they state it's a guide, actually, it's the whole policy.
Right.
It's areas of the whole policy that could become problematic, because if the library were not to follow it, it's very hard for us to attest in any type of legal proceedings that we have one set of policies and they're followed. I'm not saying again that they do or they don't. I don't know. I don't have direct knowledge of that, and I couldn't. So I would think that it reflects all areas of that policy, but we can, I can certainly bring that draft back up.
Yep. I just think it would be beneficial because there's a lot that's in there that might guide some of the day-to-day pieces and responsibilities and the compliance issues, that shall we say, might be more obvious if you see where the conflicts are in the policy, and how that might regard to either regulation or law in terms of how the town would do that, or be required to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Good start.
Next item on the workshop agenda. I lost it. Select Board Goals, W14-7. Bill?
Thank you. If you remember, we had a discussion a while back, and I think I had a discussion with Nate on this, and when he was chair, and he wanted to see that this item came back up, and then we went through the process and actually identified or re-identified what the selectmen's goals should be or would be in the short and long term. There was a goal document, I know, Peter, I heard you talking about it, and it was floating around before I got here. I saw it, and it was more of a combination of goals, and it was sort of the way that the former town manager used to update you in the punch list format instead of as you get it now in the town manager report format. It was, let's say, a combination of the two. My recommendation would be that you actually work on the process of setting your goals and setting a reasonable time frame to attain them, and make that a separate document, and then allow me to continue the updates as they have in this form, because I think it muddies it up a little bit. If I remember, Peter, that was like a 10-page document. It had like all these progress reports in it. It really wasn't goals, it was more of operations. Because if I remember, there were items in there such as, getting your website up and running, buying new computers, and items like that really wouldn't fit into that, what your policy/goal setting process. And that's what I've been fishing around a little bit. I can't find the thing either, so. Last time I saw it was paper forms.
I do have it, I just couldn't put my finger on it. But I think, what would be helpful, and particularly for our newer members, is to take the goals of the last couple of years and print those off. Because I agree, when I first started serving a little over 8 years ago, it was much more operational, it was more tactical versus more of the strategic goal, both short and long term. They were almost exclusively what I call short-term objectives every 12 months. And I think that general direction and guidance is important, but I just wanted to have the reference for everybody so they could see it, so we could, shall we say, make better judgment of where we have been, particularly over the last couple of years, and then if there's any of those that need to be extended or defined a little differently, we can do that and incorporate those with any new goals that the board wants as a whole. It's just my thought process.
Thanks, Peter. Any other board comments?
If you'd like, Carl, I will dig through the the archive there.
Just have Peter send it over to you.
Yeah, or Peter, if you can find it within the next day or two, we can both take a look, and then I'll see that the board gets it.
I will make a pledge to you, I will find it.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, I moved my office around and I have a folder and I just haven't been able to look at it.
At the end of the packet, we've got the committee, lists, but you don't have it, is it gonna be in the workshop or is it gonna be in a regular meeting? You just got them attached there. I thought they were part of the reorganization.
They're actually, I was gonna handle them in the meeting.
In the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Lou.
Just curious,
Yeah.
not looking for work.
Well, we still have a half an hour, we could just make a list of goals right now.
Yeah, well, that was gonna be my next statement, is that if you had any goals that you wanted, let's say, pop up on a list, I can start putting the list together, and or if you communicate them to me, as well as presenting you with the old list, I can put on there whatever has been put forth.
Sounds, we're all in agreement with that?
Yep.
Okay, can I just ask a question?
Go ahead, Nate.
I guess maybe that, I was thinking about the library survey and things like that. Is there anything that we send out electronically that we should be sending out that we don't send out? I guess that would be just a...
Well, here's what we do for short and long-term notification. Right now, we have a town manager report that goes out every Friday that's populated with items from most of the departments as they come up. We have a pretty good list of those people that we send it out to. We also, we're getting much better, I'm better at it, but other departments are getting much better at keeping their section of the website populated and updated. We also have a Twitter feed where we send out emerging items on a regular basis. We have Facebook pages for Park and Recreation and the library. I feel it's appropriate for those departments to have Facebook pages because of the nature of the service they provide. I am not a fan of general government using Facebook as the tool to send our message out. It really, in my opinion, does not suit the needs of a municipality, where the website and Twitter work just fine. And there's also another process that you heard me talk about last week, which is more of an emergency one last meeting, is that we now have that reverse 911 capability, which I'll mention it again in my town manager report. I'm going for the training along with the police chief for that, so that we don't have to notify the state of New Hampshire. We can actually send them out locally, the reverse 911. So, in my opinion, Nate, professionally, I think we pretty much have it covered.
May I ask one more question? Where are we
Go
at
ahead, Nate.
E911 right now?
Oh, we're just waiting to hear back from them. We're in that queue, but now we have to wait to hear back from them when they're actually going to come out and do that survey. But the reverse 911's up and running at this point. We could, if for some reason, God forbid, we had something we had to send out on the reverse 911, we could do it now. We just have to communicate with the E911 folks as to what we would want sent out and when. Once Chief Morrow and I attend this training, we will be able to do it ourselves right here from town.
Thanks, Lou. Good. All right.
I have a question. And this is regarding the website for the town of Meredith. I've actually had some people say to me, and I don't know if this is the proper time for it, but under goals, it's really difficult to find phone numbers for the different departments under there, since it's been restructured to what it is. And I went on there and looked, and it is, and maybe a goal would be to make it very easy to go on, and so that people could communicate and call if they looked at the meredithnh.org website. And I agree with you, Phil, on the Facebook thing. I don't like it as a municipality. And I deal a lot in social marketing. That's part of my profession. So it's just it's a bad site for it. But as far as the website goes, and I know I'm being redundant, I really would like to see that a little bit more, just point and click for the phone numbers on there.
I just, for curiosity's sake, just popped on because I will tell you, because I deal with it all the time, so it's a little hard. I just opened up administrative services, and their phone number is the first thing in their department.
Find me the Department of Public Works phone number,
Public
please.
Works.
This is a test.
279-6352.
Oh, wow, I'm impressed. You're going to show me, because it took forever for us to find it before. How about the dump?
That's actually the same number. It runs
Okay.
through Public Works.
All right.
So, yeah, and I will tell you that, again, I don't, because we deal with it every day, I'm not in this fashion, but it's, the majority of the departments, the way it's categorized here is, you go to town departments, and you click on, who am I gonna pick on now? Oh, fire department, okay. Click on fire department, it's, Ken, no, it's right here. It is, his phone number's right here.
Hi, Kenny.
I don't actually think he's here, that's why I did it. The police department, you click on the police department. Yeah, right at the top, next to where it says Meredith Police.
No, that's great. Maybe
Yeah.
something changed, maybe I just didn't know what I was doing, that's fine. I just couldn't find it,
Don't
so
blame yourself, it's a very difficult website to work.
I
No.
just had some trouble with it, so I thought it would be nice to maybe make a goal of making it really easy for everybody.
What happened was, I'll explain this for the benefit of the folks, and since Eric's sitting here. The software that powers our website is called Joomla. We had to do, was it like 3 upgrades along the way. And the problem is if you can't go from version 1 to version 3, you gotta go from version 1 to version 2, and then version 2 to version 3. But they don't tell you what the bugs are in 2, why they made 3. So within the past month, we had a lot of broken links, and we had a lot of issues, but we've gotten back to where we should be at this point. So what may have been the case, Hillary, is where somebody clicked on a department and got nothing. That I remember happening. We're probably, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, about 90% back. Departments have been tasked with going through and making sure that all their links aren't broken and their stuff is basically where it should be. Yeah.
I didn't look today, so
Yeah, it's been a work in progress. It's, if you remember, we got the banner at the top that said Meredith, New Hampshire, said Joomla, because open source matters for a while, and that was because they were getting free advertising off our website because no update, so.
Thank you.
Other than that, we should be okay.
If there's nothing else, we will adjourn the workshop at 5:07.
You don't want to participate.
I know, but I need to.
Yeah, that's basically
Yeah. Must be some connection.
There's a bride side.
William R. Must have She must have something.
How will, I have this.
Good evening, welcome to the Meredith Select Board meeting of March 17, 2014, 5:30 at the Meredith Community Center. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I will introduce the board members. Newly elected Select Board Member Hillary Seeger,
good evening, everyone.
Lou Khan,
Good evening.
Nate Tor,
Good evening.
Vice Chair Peter Brothers,
Good evening, everyone.
I'm Chair Carla Warren, And we have Phil Warren, Town Manager, and Karen Landry, Recording Clerk. Okay, first item on the agenda is acceptance or correction of minutes. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Nate?
I move to accept the March 3rd workshop and regular minutes, meeting minutes there.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion, corrections? All in favor? Next on the agenda, Town Manager's Report. Phil?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Which one's going to be first? Waste oil is accepted in solid waste. No charge, 5 gallons per trip or more, if arrangements are made in advance. Again, I know I make a joke of this, but it's important that we pass this message out for the ecological reasons so that the oil ends up getting recycled. And it's also important that we pass this message out because we use this oil to heat our solid waste and public works facilities. As a reminder, no snow in the streets, but we're not going to get any more snow. Please don't plow or remove snow in the right-of-way, which is becoming a problem. There are many folks that are widening out their driveways understandably, and a lot of the dinosaur eggs from the snow are ending up in the right-of-way, which becomes problematic after we've cleared. No cars in the street during the parking manager where any items that are left in the right-of-way, which there are none left, will be removed. Again, boat registration is handled at Town Hall. Board of Selectmen meetings are both streamed live and available on demand at the town website, meredithnh.org. Lake Region Public Access streams Channel 25 live. All town-owned roads are posted at this point. No vehicle over 6 tons is allowed on a town road without a permit from the Public Works Department. Permits to travel may be available, weather depending, at the Public Works Office. You can go to our website, www.meredithnh.org, click on the Public Works, under town departments, and gather more information on that item. The final cable TV franchise has come into my office. We're still reviewing it. The plan is that you will have a meeting with the attorney, and then at some point we will have a hearing to accept that franchise. We have another lot merger request that's going to be handled at the first meeting in April. We received correspondence from the Department of Transportation, proposed resurfacing program for calendar year 2014 for District 3, and included in that is Meredith Center Harbor, New Hampshire Route 25, 4.8 miles from the intersection of US 3 and Meredith Easterly to the Center Harbor, Molten Borough Town Line. Place a 1 1/4 inch high-strength wearing course at the US Route 3 intersection. That is the only item, and Meredith, New Hampton, Winona Road, 1.7 miles, 3/4 inch paver shim from the intersection of New Hampshire 104 northerly to the intersection of Waukee Road. What is obviously missing from this is the item that you've heard me talk about in the past, Meredith Neck Road and Barnard Ridge Road. There are no plans at this point to include them in that list. And as you are aware, I sent an email to the Commissioner's office, copied you all on it, and have sent a copy to Jeannie Forrester because she has been attempting to assist us in this process, informing DOT that that road is getting to the point where it could be deemed hazardous. There are issues in the area of the Stone Arch Culvert on Meredith Neck Road, which the state has committed to at least explore, and that the town would be looking for some sort of incremental maintenance, whether it be a paver shim, a drag shim, or something to take the curse off that road. I will tell you that Selectman Khan and myself have had some discussions on this item, and while I am not, let's say, as pessimistic as Lou is, I do agree that the likelihood is slim that you would see, the likelihood slim as to the strategies that are being employed by DOT, that we're going to see any significant work done on that road. I think, in my opinion, again, we need to press on and see that the state owns up to their responsibility and maintains that road. We're getting to the point now that I don't want to say if it snows again, I really don't, but if it's necessary for us to remove snow from that road, it may be problematic for us because it's beating up our equipment badly.
Madam Chairman, may I defend my negative views? I mean, I am not opposed to, to work on Meredith Neck Road. No, it's just that I know, as everyone on the select board, except for maybe Hillary, knows, that last year we got a letter from the state to the effect that they do not regard Meredith Neck Road as part of the state highway system. End of their, we don't work on roads that aren't in the state highway system, and this is not one of them. And last week, just sort of looking for information, I went down to the transportation summit that was held by the state senator from Laconia, where the commissioner at DOT spoke. And in the course of his presentation, he talked of roads that don't belong in the state highway system, that the state took on years ago, maybe in the 40s, and he used as an example Meredith Neck Road. Later in his presentation, he said, we're not going to do anything on those roads that don't belong in the state highway system. So, Phil and I have had conversations as to whether or not a deal is possible. I guess I'm always ready looking for a deal. Phil feels that we're not going to get one, so.
Madam Chair, I too have gone to the same presentation that Lou has gone to. It was presented at the New Hampshire Municipal Association meeting. The exact same statements were made, and Meredith Neck Road was referenced at that point. But nonetheless, I feel that the town and the residents of this area should not back off getting the state to repair that road. It was a state road in the 40s, and I'm exaggerating, but I don't think it's been touched since then. It probably has, but it probably hasn't been touched in the last 15 to 20 years, and it's in deplorable condition. If it were a town road, it would not be in that condition. And I think that it's unreasonable for the state to come in at this point and say, hey, this is a state road, we were supposed to maintain it, but we didn't, it fell apart, now you guys can take it over. Because it's not just the road, as we've discussed, it's the sub-base, it's the drainage, it's everything involved.
Go ahead.
Phil, did you say that you were suggesting that they shim the road? Or were you just talking about that culvert?
I'm suggesting that they do some type of incremental maintenance to it, whether it be a paver, a grader shim, a drag shim, something to take the curse off that road. Because it's not, there are sections that are worse than the other, but the entire length of it, from Route 25 to the Cattle Landing seam, needs some type of overlay attention. I mean, there isn't a good section on it.
At that presentation, Commissioner Clement said that they were going to spend money keeping good roads good. As to bad state roads, they would shim them, even though that would only last for maybe 3 years. And then he had the third category, which is roads we don't think belong in the state system. So maybe we can get promoted to be a bad state road.
Yeah. One of the differences that the state has, and that many in the road surface management community have, is that they're following a program that was attached to a piece of software called RSMS, which is simply Road Surface Management Systems. And the caveats with RSMS is that you end up with what's called a pavement condition index, basically like a score. And you want to keep your score as high as possible, so you keep your good roads good, and your bad ones, you incrementally chip away at them. The state has a different philosophy on it. Their statement ends at keep your good roads good, and throw a shim on some of the bad ones. That does nothing to maintaining that goal and keeping that grade up. And the reason you keep the grade up is it's less costly to maintain a road that's in good to fair shape than it is to completely rebuild a road. So if you're doing a paver shim or an overlay on a regular basis, and you're able to maintain that road and do that incremental work every 5 to 7 years, that's cheaper to do than full depth reclamation. And that's by the state's admission, because they told us it was going to cost us $1 million a mile to rebuild those two roads.
I know, I'm a broken record with that.
Share our misfortune with the public.
Well, and what's unique about Meredith Neck Road and the other roads is we perform the winter maintenance. How that arrangement came about, I cannot find. But all the other state-maintained non-numbered routes, Winona Road, Pease Road, Meredith Neck Road, Meredith Center Road, the state performs both the summer and the winter maintenance. So for us, not only is it a bad road for our residents to travel, it also does a tune on our equipment.
Thanks, Phil.
And that's all I have.
Visitors and residents' comments.
Do I?
Push the silver
There's
button.
a silver button and a red light comes on.
Okay, there we go.
You're on.
Karen State from Tracy Way, and now I've just added another question to my grouping tonight. But I thought the article that we just passed at town meeting about the roads that we're taking out of these 2-for-1, the expendable trust, was going to be used for Barnard Ridge and Meredith Center. Neither one of them?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Phil.
it's going to be used to take care of the roads and streets in town. The reason, during the budget discussions, it became very clear to the board that that money would be extremely hard for the town to access with a state match. Because right now, the projects are programmed out to 2017. And for you to run a project of that level, you have to completely design it and then maintain it. Right now, as you know, we don't design repave it.
Right.
We overlay the
Right.
road, we chip seal it. Even when we do full depth, like we've done on other roads, there's no need to design that because the profile's in place. We paved them. In this case, we'd have to spend significant town funds that we could not match to design it if we wanted to access the money, and there's no guarantee it's going to be available for us to access. So the board made the decision during the budget process to use it to maintain the town roads and streets, while keeping, it's another revenue source that we would not have to raise by taxation.
For some reason, I assumed that because Meredith Neck and Barnard Ridge have been brought up year after year after year, that you were using those under consideration. But, okay, you answered that one. My other question is, I'm very curious as to why you reorganized during a workshop instead of during a meeting. It seems to me that workshops are for information and meetings are for voting. And the other question I have concerning that is that I watched you all very carefully while you were reorganizing and voting, and not one of you had an expression on your face of surprise, of questioning, of anything. So I have to ask if the reorganization results were pre-discussed by any of you earlier.
I can answer that now.
And then why did you reorganize?
Because it's always been done, since I've been here, it's been done in the
It's always
workshops.
been done at the workshops, Karen.
And this is my 4th year, it's been done in the workshop every 4th year, I know.
I recall last year it was done at a workshop, and it surprised me at that point too, because traditionally workshops are for information and voting is for the actual meetings. So I guess I was just curious.
If I could, to add to that, I asked the question, and Karen, I don't know if it was my first year or my second year, but I asked the question about that, and the answer that was given to me at the time was the board reorganizes so that they would have a new chair and a vice chair to do the work for that whole meeting.
Okay,
That's the
thank
way it
you.
was told to me.
Okay.
Makes sense. Thank you, Karen. Any other comments? Okay, so we'll move on to new business. Oh, I'm sorry, select board comments. This is actually the second meeting of the month. Any committee reports?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Peter?
No report, but the planning board will be meeting next Tuesday here in this building, 3/25/2014, as scheduled, 7 p.m.
Thanks, Peter. No other comments? Okay, now we can move on to new business. Hearing for Ilvesiker lot merger request.
Thank you. Notice of public hearing, Meredith Board of Selectmen, on March 17th, 2014, the Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing to receive input on a proposal by the Bear Island Nominee Trust, Mark Visicker, co-trustee, to restore and voluntarily merge lots located at 51 Bear Island, tax map I-3, lot 15. The hearing will be held at the Meredith Community Center, 1 Circle Drive, Meredith, New Hampshire, and begin at 5:30 p.m. Questions or comments may be directed to Philip Warren, Town Manager, pwarren@meredithnh.org.
Thank you, Phil. So we need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move we open that hearing.
Second, Madam Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, Phil?
this is a request that was presented by the Bear Island Nominee Trust, where they had submitted a plan which included, it was a request to unmerge lots, to put them to what's called their pre-merger status, and this was in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 674:39 small aa. And under that law, it allows you to unmerge lots that were involuntarily merged. And when I say you, I meant the owner of the lot. What it states is that if they were involuntarily merged, you can unmerge them, but it doesn't override or give you any special status as it relates to planning and zoning and other regulations. We received this request from the Bear Island Nominee Trust, where they wanted to unmerge lots 15 and 16 from their subdivision, which includes 13, 14, 15, and 16. 13 and 14 straddle a lot line. This property straddles a lot line, therefore that is not considered involuntarily merged, but 15 and 16 are unimproved. So after discussion at the workshop, you were informed that the nominee trust wanted to unmerge 15 and 16. They would become separate lots, and that subsequently, at the request of the landowner, subsequently you were also informed that you had to have a hearing tonight to perform said unmerger. The hearing notices were sent out. They were sent out to the abutters. I received one question by email from an abutter asking what was to be unmerged and the status of the unmerged lots. I informed that property owner of the status and have not heard from anyone else involved. My suggestion to the board would be that you would, and I will tell you that Elizabeth Ilvisiker is here tonight, and I know that we have stated most of this. I would expect that if, actually I'll make it easy. Ms. Ilvisiker, you're in agreement with everything that we've stated tonight?
Yes.
I know that the request has come through and you have all the paperwork that the nominee trust is also in agreement of it. So at this point, I would recommend, if there's any board comments or audience, people in attendance that want to comment on it, you take those comments and then at that time close the hearing and entertain the motion to perform that lot unmerger.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Any comments from the board on that?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Peter?
This was a pretty extensive workshop that we had last month that was presented, and there's significant backup material. I don't think there's any handout material to the general public, but they have had a chance to respond if they chose to directly for that information to review it. But it really looks more or less like an administrative type of decision. The statute's pretty clear, it was passed. This happens to be the first instance where the town of Meredith has had somebody who's approached us under that law. It appears that based on the information that's here and the applicant's permission along with the trust, that all the documentation in order to approve that request formally by the board has been presented and has been reviewed.
Thank you, Peter. Other comments?
Public?
Seeing none, I need a motion to close the hearing then.
I move to close the hearing.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing is closed. So now we will need a motion.
This is a long motion.
It's very long, and we can't say so moved on this
Yeah.
one.
Mr. Chairman, or Madam Chairman, if I
Yes,
may, excuse me. In the matter of the yield sector lot merger request, I move the following motion. That Mark Yulsacker, co-trustee of the Bear Island Nominee Trust, has requested tax map 1-3 lot 15 be restored to pre-merger status in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 674:39 double small a. The Bear Island Nominee Trust makes this request at its own risk, and the town has relied upon the accuracy of the information submitted. And that Mark Yulsacker, co-trustee of the Bear Island Nominee Trust, has submitted a sketch plan indicating improvements to the subdivision lots, lots 13 and 14, including a house and a cabin that straddle the share lot line between subdivision lots 13 and 14. And the Board of Selectmen hereby deems subdivision 13 and 14 as being voluntarily merged based upon the information submitted by Mark Yulsacker, and that the owner abandoned the shared lot line between the respective lots 13 and 14 of the subdivision, and that the Board of Selectmen hereby restores subdivision lots 15 and 16 to their pre-merger status as separate lots, and that the town of Meredith makes no warranty as to the accuracy of the information submitted by the Bear Island Nominee Trust, nor has the town of Meredith caused any independent verification as to the location of improvements on tax maps I-13, lot 15, and restoration of the lots to pre-merger status will affect property assessments and therefore property taxes, and that the restoration of the lots to pre-merger status shall not be deemed to cure any non-conformity with existing local land use ordinances. Future development is subject to applicable zoning requirements, and that this decision of the Board of Selectmen may be appealed in accordance with the provisions of New Hampshire RSA 676, and zoning and tax maps shall be updated to identify the pre-merger boundaries of said lots, and this notice of restoration of involuntary merged lots shall be provided to the owner and recorded at the Belknap County Registry of Deeds. The end.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All business? What?
No, I was going to say thank you, we're all set that fast.
Thank you.
Under old business, 14-7, Maple Ridge Village District Proposal. Philip?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We discussed at the last workshop the request of the Maple Ridge residents to form a village district and the process to do that. And it was identified at that meeting that the next step would be that the selectmen would lay out the village district and would schedule the village district's first meeting. Using the information presented by the Maple Ridge folks, we have identified the lots and we actually have identified the lots, and I have a placeholder of a time of April 21st, 6:15 at the Meredith Community Center to hold the initial meeting of the village district. As you're aware, upon request of the residents in the district area, the board shall form the village district and schedule the first meeting. These are the steps in doing that.
Thank you, Phil. So we need a motion.
Madam Chairman,
Yes?
if we're now about to do just that, I move that the Maple Ridge Village District be laid out to include the following parcels: tax map R28, lots 28, 27, 26, 25, 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, and 31. And I further move that the initial meeting of the said village district be held on April 21st at 6:15 PM at the Meredith Community Center.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion?
Just so you're aware, if the vote is successful, I would then work with the town council to prepare the warrant for this first meeting. We would post it where we normally post it, and we actually have to post it in the district. So we will take care of those items. Yeah. I think there's plenty of phone calls.
Don't use a phone pole.
That's right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Next item under old business 14-8, GMP 3-15 committee alternate request.
You received a request when we were putting together the 3 and 25 committee to place the Greater Meredith program, asked to place an alternate on the committee, and that alternate being Rusty McClare. We have not taken action on that, and at this point, I would like to know if any action the board would like to take on that.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Lou?
I see no reason why we should not approve Rusty McClure as an alternate. I had a long discussion with him about a week ago, and he's happy to be an alternate, doesn't expect to vote, but I am clear, and he is clear, that his views will be known. So I move that we accept alternates generally. If people propose alternates, that the select board pass on them and approve alternates, and that the alternates, the only qualification be that they be residents of Meredith.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yes, Madam Chairman?
Yes, Peter?
I guess the question I do have is if we do have an alternate that is attending and a vote needs to be taken that evening, it would seem to me that the alternate would have to be exactly that, an alternate, and that they should have an impact on the vote. Now my question is, we do have other committees with alternates. What is the process in those other committees?
Madam Chair, can I answer that? Because when we first set up this committee, and I was chair, it was set up to be 9 people. And those 9 people on it were the voters, as it stated. And the alternate can only come in if the person is not there on the group that they are representing. So there's 9 people set up. We set up on purposely that way so there would not be any tie votes.
If I could, I can answer 2 questions, Peter's and Nate's. First one to Peter's, yes, Peter, in the case of the ZBA, what happens is if we don't have a quorum, the alternate votes. I use the ZBA because they're the only statutory committee, Conservation Commission too.
Planning board is not true. That's why I'm begging the question.
The other committees, like Energy Committee, sometimes we have people that serve as alternates, they're not really voting members. To Nate's question, that simplifies it, yes, you end up with 9 votes because it would either be that or the alternate. What you did not do when you formed this committee was discuss alternates or the possibility of them.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Peter?
Then I'll offer the following amendment. The amendment being that if there are 9 votes needed and there's an alternate that's serving in the stead of a regular member, that he or she will be able to vote in regards to the matter at hand that may come up that meeting, may or may not.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on it?
The moderator in me begs to ask, you're voting on the amendment?
Yes, we're
Okay.
voting on the amendment,
Okay, just to be clear.
as stated.
Yes. So the first vote is on
The amendment.
I have to vote on it.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Okay. Now that we've gotten through the amendment, now I think we had an original motion from Lou, didn't we?
Yep.
Could you state that again?
Alternates will be accepted if approved by the select board and must be residents of Meredith.
And second,
Second by me, I'll re-second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
We knew that. Okay, now, What do we need to do on
You
this?
need to approve the alternate, the request of Rusty McClure to be an alternate on the 3 and 25 committee.
I move that Rusty McClure be accepted as an alternate on the Greater Meredith Program Committee.
It's the 25 and
3 and 25 committee, Greater Meredith Program alternate to the 3 and 25 committee,
Yep.
pardon me.
And a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Rusty will be surprised and
Is there any other business to come before the board?
I have one item if you could.
Go ahead, Phil.
In case folks aren't aware, Kenneth Hill, who used to work for the town, who's actually the mother of Monica Bennett, who works for Public Works, passed away this weekend. Father, yeah, sorry.
He worked in the water
He
department.
worked at the water department and was a police officer, I guess, a while back. We do have another item. There'll be a funeral service at St. Charles Church for Kenneth on Route 25, March 19th, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Calling hours will be at the church from 10 to 11 before the service, and the reception will be held in the church hall immediately following the cemetery. Burial will be in the Meredith Village Cemetery in the spring at the convenience of the family.
One other item, Phil, was the Board of Selectmen appointments to
Thank
subcommittees.
Thank you. You have in front of you copies of board appointments for committees, planning board, CIP, etc. Probably quicker than me, I gotta get the list back up.
Why don't we just go down through the list? Peter, the planning board ex officio, last year was Peter Brothers. Peter Brothers would like to remain as that member.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Ex officio alternate, we had Nate Tor last year.
I will unless someone else wants to take my place.
CIP advisory committee, we had Tor last year and Horn as an alternate. I'd be happy to do either one.
May I make a suggestion? Since you are the chair, I think you ought to be the main one.
I will be the advisory committee member this year. And we need an alternate.
I can do that.
Okay, Seeger, CIP advisory alternate.
Okay. So, committees, Nate. CIP is... oh, it's
Horn and Seeger.
Okay.
Waukee Watershed Advisory Committee was Horn last year. Does anyone want to take that on?
When does that
It meets
When does that
Wednesday,
meet?
first Wednesday of the month, at 8 in the morning. At the
mean?
end.
Just one Wednesday a month at 8 in the morning?
Yes,
I'll do that.
all right. Waukee Watershed Advisory Committee, Seeger. Belknap County Economic Development Council was Vadney. Do we have any volunteers for that?
Madam Chairman,
Yes?
not being familiar with what the meeting schedule on that is, have we been able to ascertain that?
That's what we were trying to find out in between
I could
meetings.
not find that out, I want to know, Peter.
You want to table that till next meeting?
Why don't, if we would.
All right, so I'll see what I can find out.
3 and 25 Project Advisory Committee, Lou Kahn. Do we have an alternate? Do we need an alternate?
This was the old committee, and I carried it through. I know that we had a discussion last year regarding an alternate on this, but I don't know if your board wants to, this is basically a different committee, but I use the same line, because it's now a subcommittee of the board, it's not that standalone committee. So I don't know if the board wants to put somebody forth in case Lou can't make it.
I will make it.
Okay. That's easy.
I will make it, or you will postpone the meeting.
Who's the man?
Okay.
Okay, Local Energy Committee was Kahn last year. I'll be happy to do that if no one else wants to. Horn for Local Energy Committee. Do we want do we need an Energy Committee alternate?
If you want, I will, but
I don't think we need to. That is the end of that.
Yeah, the last one dropped off last year.
Yeah, it was Miller's thing.
Yes.
He
correct.
he wanted to get his hands on the trustees and trust funds, and Barbara Clark was absolutely opposed.
All right, I will find out about Belknap County Economic Development Council's meeting schedule.
Great, thank you. All right.
Nothing else to come before the board? Last chance for visitors. Would you like to speak?
We just have a question, I think we'll talk to Mrs.
Do you want to speak?
Well, they had a question on the, just.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned.
Carl?